is Cliff Tam. Okay, my Chinese name is Tam Quan Ching. I mean Tam Wen Jing. So I mean that's in Cantonese. So I was born in Hong Kong. My family migrated to Toronto when I was 8. So I lived there for almost 20 something years. So here's a picture of me when I was little riding my bike and must be very young, probably before 6 or 7. So I don't even remember that bike or those shorts or that picture. Okay, so this whole webinar series is about relationship. So you're gonna hear a bit about my relationships, and so I'm gonna share my history. Okay, so it's rather embarrassing, but let's go it because it's kind of funny or a bit sad too. So okay, so like if I talk about relationship, the first like one of my like the earliest memory of some girl that I like back in high school. So that was like when I was 15. Okay, so this is a grade 10. So I mean yeah, so there's a girl I like. She was in my class, and but I'm too shy to talk to her. Okay, I mean I just talk to her a bit once in a while, but not like really friends or anything. So at that time, well, I guess you guys know how I am. At that time, that movie came out. So Titanic, very romantic. So I was like, hey, why don't I ask her out on a movie? So I kind of stalk her at her locker, wait until she comes, and when she's by herself, then I got approached. I say, hey, do you like to watch a movie with me? And guess what she say? She say no. Not really surprising considering she never know me. She doesn't know who I am. Like, why would you say yes? There's some guy that you don't even know. So anyway, so that really broke my heart, and I remember going back home and crying in the basement, like saying, oh man, it's so bad, it's so horrible. So that was like kind of like the beginning of what I think about like relationship, because I have no idea what to do. No one ever taught me, and so here's a picture of my high school. This is my prom. So like I'm the guy at the corner, and then my date is actually on the side. So she's just a friend. So I remember like okay, right. Here's okay, yes. So I remember like I was never able to like get into a relationship and get into a relationship that is never know what to do. Never do know what to do with the opposite sex. I like this girls I like, I'm a crushing, but I never really do anything, right? So fast track past university after I graduated, one of my close friend, guy friend, and I'm not saying he's shy, but he doesn't talk to girls often, right? So one of my guy friend, he decided to go on this thing called, hold on, sorry, let's pull this a bit. All right, this thing called Lava Life. Okay, so definitely not in Singapore. I don't know if it's Singapore. I don't think so. It's in Canada. So it's like a dating website online, right? So I'm like, wow, I cannot believe he went on this, he is a very has a brainy person, right? So he realized he has this problem. He's shy with girls. So how do you overcome this problem? You just go on go online and try to just overcome that shyness, right? So I graduated, and I was like, I had nothing to do as well. I was single. So you know what? Why not join him? And I decided, you know what? Let's have a dating contest. Let's see who can like find 10 girls to date online on Lava Life the fastest, right? So my friend accepted that challenge, and well, I won, but guess what? None of them become a relationship, right? I think I met 10 different people, very interesting, different type of people, but nothing ever came into actual, anything long term or anything substantial. I did have one person I met. She ended up like become a really close friend of mine, good friend. Like so, I kind of got her into like running and triathlon and marathon and anyway. So, but that's a different story. So that's a part of me. I'm sure if you guys attend my webinar last time, that I did. Like, I love triathlon at this time, like just around finishing university. I love doing triathlon. So I decided to do this Ironman. So this is like, we say about no picture, no proof, right? So here's a picture of me finish the finish line, 14 hours and 21 minutes of swimming 3.8 kilometers, biking 180K, and then going for a marathon run after that. So probably one of the craziest thing I ever done in my life, other than maybe Reja. Well, that it's crazy for her probably more so than me. But so my background also is that I had a liver transplant when I was 10 years old. So just when I think about all these things, I'm like, wow, I cannot believe like, I'm alive, let alone doing something so physically demanding. At that day I spent more time exercising than like sleeping, right? 14 hours and 24-hour day. But also at that race, also I have a very spiritual like I said, Jesus spoke to me at that race. So that's probably the best way to do it. So before I finished the race, they make us like run out and back to make get the distance. So it was already dark at night, right? And so I was like running, giving thanks to God because I know I finished it already. It's done deal, So I was thank you God for like letting me do the race, and letting me able to be healthy because I used to drink a lot in university, which is really stupid. So I'm not a Christian at that time. I just saying, so don't think I'm like bad Christian. So at that no, so it was only like around triathlon I started to go to church. So at that time, when I was giving thanks to God, Jesus spoke to me. Jesus said, "Hey, why don't I show you how you were like before?" So he showed me all the times I was drunk, I was passed out at my friend's house on my birthday, and I was so lost in university. And he told me that, Cliff, I was there with you the whole time. So I interpret that as like, oh, I was so lost, I'm not even realized. Lost as in like I'm such a sinful person. I'm so trapped in my own sin, I don't even realize it yet. Yet Jesus didn't give up on me. Yet Jesus sustained me and he healed me. Right? So I was so touched, and during at the end of this night, while I was running, like tears were like coming out because I was so thankful for what the Lord has done to me. Right? So after that, end of the year, that was in July, end of the year, December, I decided, hey, wonder what, sign my life away to follow Jesus. Right? So I was already baptized, all that stuff, but this point was really serious because this point I really laid down my life. I say, Lord, I will follow you. I seek you first in everything I do, right? And like no condition. Right? It's not like, oh, if you give me a wife, I do this. If you give me that, I'll do that. But just laying down to say, Lord, I'll seek everything I do, I seek you first. And that really started my heart for mission, right? And I feel like that point is so important in my Christian walk. Okay, so going back to relationship. So at this time, like, I was like, 25, 27, 29, 30, right? And so I started going to a church when I was just graduated. So I was in this group, we call it the young adults, right? So you finish school, you start working, right? So all my friends at church are all young adults, and all of them are single. But guess what? When it's 25, 27, 29, they start like one of them started get attached, and I don't get attached, and I don't get attached. It's a quiet guy, that quiet guy in my group, his name is Dave, super nice guy, but super quiet. He's also attached. So my pastor is like, hey, Cliff, what's going on here? And I'm like, I've been trying. There's girls I like in church. There's like, I like them. They don't like me. And afterwards, they like me. I'm not interested. And so things didn't work out. And so in terms of, we talk about relationship, what is my like, my CV, right? I've been single since for like 31 years. I never had a successful relationship, right? And I kind of cross a successful because what's the definition of a successful relationship, right? I mean, for me, it's marriage, right? So, even I've had girlfriends before that, like it doesn't really matter. So I never had a relationship. I don't even know how to have a relationship. Never thought about it so seriously. And so now, okay, so let me show you a picture of my wife, Weija. So I'm not gonna talk too much about how we met because if you saw the video, watch the video of us, that explains a lot, right? So I don't need to explain that. It'll take like an hour. Okay. So Weija is in Singapore and got sent me to Singapore and Toronto, and she was my first girlfriend, and we got married. And so on her side, she said that she always prayed to God that like the guy she married, that he would never had a girlfriend like except her, like that she would be his first. And it's true, like it's crazy, like anyway. So she said yes and whatnot, and so we got married when about a year after I came to Singapore. So that was 2012 October. So last month we actually celebrated our 8th-year anniversary, and I can tell her like now I still cannot believe I'm married to her. It's just for me so crazy. Like I can tell you I'm so bad with geography. Like when she told me where Singapore is, I could like Google, right? Because I'm in Toronto, like all the way in. I'm like, oh, it's just this small island in Malaysia. Because I know my friends from Singapore, but I didn't realize this, city state, that kind of thing. Anyways, so that's how bad I am annoyed. So both of us have a heart of mission. So we came together after we got married for about a year or so. We went on Uganda for a year. Most of you guys will know about this. Went for there, served the Lord. I served at a Bible school, and so here's I was in a wedding, just visiting different people in the Bible school. So kind of fast forward a bit to now. So now what do we have? So we have two wonderful girls. The first one, her name is Sarah Faye. The one that's like, her name is Sarah Faye. So she's 3.5. And the little one is Esther Praise. She's 1.5. Now they're both very different, right? So this is how we describe how they're like, okay? So if you took my personality of like outgoing, go-getter, create loud and all that stuff, and you take Wager's, that kind of personality, you put it all together, that's Sarah Faith, right? Sarah Faith is like nothing wrong with it. I like it. She go crazy, she talks, she love to jump or run around, all that stuff, burn a lot of energy, right? Now, Esther Praise is very different. If you take me the gentle side, the kindness, the compassion side, the meeker side of me and Wager, put our personality together, bam, that's Esther Praise. Like super gentle, super quiet, super. Well, she's not. I mean, she's a bit louder now because she's a bit older, but she's super quiet, super cute. Like very kind, very compassionate. She is as a baby. She will give you what she likes, even though she's willing to share. Even though she likes something like a juice or some cookie, she'll share, and she doesn't cry. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. So this is we call it. This is how I say Team 10 in 2020. That's who are we, right? Who are we? My family right now. So okay, so that's who I am. Okay, so now for this session, first session, I'm gonna just lay down some ground rules. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what to expect, what not to expect, so that you guys not like, hey, this is not what I expect coming on here. Okay, so first thing, what to expect. Okay, first thing, I expect you to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Okay, that means you're a disciple. Okay, so if you've been to my mission webinar, right, the first session I talk about what is discipleship, right, because that is so important, right? Like when I say a disciple, it doesn't mean you just go to church. Okay, you have a desire to seek Him and His righteousness. I use a gym as an analogy. Okay, so like, have you ever gone to a gym to exercise, right? And you see a guy who spends more of his time with this than working out, right? He just like do something and he just spend like 5 minutes working, exercising, like 20 minutes, on the phone, right? Or like 20 minutes talking to people, right? There's always one guy or person like that, right? Like that is like saying that, hey, I've been to the gym, to exercise, but it's really like using the phone. So you can go through the motion of doing all this Christian stuff, but you're not really following Jesus, right? So I expect you to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Because if not, please make that decision to be a disciple, because the rest of the sessions I say, all the things I say, it will not make sense at all, because if you're not interested, like it's all based on that alone. Okay, that relationship is probably the most important than anything else. Okay. So my second point is that I'm going to look at dating and relationship from a biblical and a spiritual perspective, okay? Because you can look at it from any other perspective. You can look at the world perspective, guy, girls perspective, different perspective. I'm going to look at it from, from a biblical perspective. Now, everybody will say that they will say that, oh, it's from a biblical perspective. So what do I mean by biblical perspective? At least, I'm doing my best to give you a balanced Bible view of what a point is, okay? So for example, like I'm not going to use an extreme view. So for example, like there's some people, okay, not maybe you may not be, doesn't matter, but there's some people who say that what, a woman should not speak at church, right? Because I think Paul wrote one time, said, I do not allow women to speak at church, right? In service or something like that. And someone took one verse and just make a whole interpretation and apply it to our church and the way we live as Christian, right? So for me, I look at, like, for example, I look at marriage, right? For example, I just look at marriage, the topic of marriage, right? I won't look at just one verse and base it off. I look at the whole Bible and look at all the times marriage is described or used in the verses, and pull it out and see like what the common point or theme, okay? So that's what I'm trying to do. Now, you may not agree with what I say or how I interpret. No problem. I'm not offended, and that's okay. We all have different point of view, okay? So that's fine. But at least, the point of view, the way our point of view comes from is based on what the Bible say and not what we think, and then we just take our verse from Bible and say, here you go, there you go, it's biblical. No, you got to do it the other way, okay? And the third point is you're gonna hear lots of embarrassing stories from me because I have a lot of embarrassing story, and so just to point out like some lessons along the way, okay? All right, cool. Now here's what not to expect, okay? What not to expect. Number one, I'm not your matchmaker, okay? I remember my friend sent it to his cell group, and one guy said, "Hey, is he gonna matchmake us?" No, the only matchmaking I'm gonna make you is I'm gonna match you with Jesus. That's it, okay? That's not the point of this webinar, So that's not what I'm gonna do, okay? Two, I'm not giving you tips on how to get the girl or guy of your dreams, okay? So that's not what I'm trying to do, okay? Because I'm gonna go deeper than that. That's why I say spiritual perspective, okay? So three, I'm not gonna give you a Disney ending that is like happily ever after, or maybe a Korean drama ending. Maybe it's more more modern these days. Yeah, like that's not what I am trying to do. Okay, I'm gonna show you how to, um, as you seek a relationship, how do you honor God through that? Okay, and my last point is this webinar is not for theological debate. Okay, I'm not against debating. I'm not against like looking at different point of view. Okay, so for example, if you talk about husband and wife, there's always this like complementarian versus egalitarian and what's just right, what's not, right? So like I'm not here for that debate, okay? So I'm gonna try, this is not the point because it will take too long. So okay, so this is what not to expect. Okay, now if you think like what is the point of this webinar, like this whole series, we talk about relationship, right? But like what's the point? Okay, I can come up with two things. Okay, one, honor God in our relationship. Two, develop healthy relationship. Okay, so honor God in our relationship, healthy relationship. As I think about this, I actually realize you can have one without the other. I mean, to be honest, if you can technically say, okay, if a relationship is not honoring God, there's no way to be healthy. But it can be. I know many people, husband and wife, couples who are good people, never fight, always support one another, healthy relationships, but they don't believe in Jesus. So they don't honor God. Done, right? And the other way, there could be a couple I know that would like, from the outside, wow, they go to church, they do Bible study, they lead cell groups, they volunteer, they go to mission trip, they tithe 10% or 15%, not even 10%, they're like, cream of the cream, right? You think about like they're like the cream of the cream in the church, but yet they have not a healthy relationship among themselves, right? Now, I'm not here like, poking and judging everybody, right? That's not what I'm trying to say. But my point is that you can have one without the other, right? And so my point is, let's aim for both. I think that's the best way, most for long-term wise. Okay, so now for me, so now let's talk about like some of the definition. What does honoring to God mean, right? What does honor honoring God mean? What does honor mean, right? At least the simplest way I can look at it is doing the right thing in the relationship, right? Like, so for example, when there's a girl I want to meet for the first time and I like her, I will try to put my best foot forward, right? I want to show you my best side, right? But then, that there's something wrong with it. But if I lie and pretend to be someone I'm not, right, in order to get her to like me, that's not the right thing, So actually, the key is actually for me is doing the right thing. And I think when at least when I talk to couples when they have issues in life, one of the things I can see is if they're not doing the right thing, for example, lie to their parents, hide something from their parents, that is something that is not honoring to God. Okay, so that's one. So two, what is healthy relationship means? Sorry, so healthy, right? I mean, drink lots of water, eat your vitamins, your vegetables. Don't eat so much chicken rice now. That's true. I mean, eat your chicken rice, they're good. So, but I mean, healthy is in where both parties in the relationship is free to glorify God in his or her own way. The relationship is not based out of fear or condemnation. Okay, I'll explain that more in next session, but just to keep it in mind. Okay, because you can be in a relationship, but it cannot be healthy, right? And so that's how I sort of take a look at it. I mean, you can spend a lot of time thinking about this. You can have your own definition, which is great. You should think about how did these in your life honoring God and having a healthy relationship looks like. Okay, so when I talk about relationship, like I actually broke up into a way not just about dating and courtship. And to be honest, I that wasn't really what I had planned, you know. But actually, the more I think about it, the more I always feel like God gave me this to talk about, not just about dating and courtship. Because if you look at, like, if you want to find out more about marriage, right? There a book just talk about marriage, right? Just get married and what does it look like, right? And then there's a book about dating, just about dating, and there's Parenthood, that's just about being parent, right? But for me, I want to take a step back and look at it from like a 30,000 feet perspective. So I mean, we're just gonna talk about life stages, okay? So you start off as a baby, right? And you grow up, and then I call it singlehood. Then you find someone you like and whatnot, or they like you, and you're dating, and then you're courtship. Then you're moving on to marriage. Then after that, you're moving on to parenthood, right? Being a parent. So I mean, that's not rocket science, but one life stage is built upon another, right? So parenthood based off of marriage, based off of courtship, dating, based off of single, right? So this is how a healthy way of looking at it, right? I mean, we look in our world right now where sometimes people can have kids before married and so on and so on. Okay, but this is how I'm looking at it as a healthy way of looking at relationship, right? So when I look at relationship, we look at it like it's not just dating and courtship. It actually goes all the way, to to the end. And I'm not trying to make you feel overwhelmed about this, but have you ever, like, if you're like, for example, if you're right now looking in a dating relationship, have you ever thought about marriage or think about being a parent, right? Because I can tell you, I never thought about that. I remember when I was, looking for a relationship, and a girl actually liked me. I was I'm so surprised. And so she asked me, like, "What do you expect out of this?" And for me, I'm like, I was so, like, not mature. I was like, I just want to hold your hand. I'm like, whoa. Now I then think about it, because I'm not gonna be like, I want you to be, children of my, be my, be my, but when I think about it, I realize it's more than just that, right? When in dating, it actually, we need to think about a longer term perspective, not to be overwhelmed about it, freak out about it, but rather be realistic about it, right? Like, I mean, if you're studying at university, perfect example, right? Let's say you're doing like doing any program you're doing, right? They'll list out like what courses you need to take in order to graduate, right? You don't go in like, oh, I randomly I want to take this course and take this take that course, right? No, you go in with a mindset of, I want to take this course, I want to graduate with this degree, therefore break down all the courses I need to take, right? So you may even start with like, I want to become, a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, or whatever, right? And then from there you go back, right? You say what degree I need, what school I want to take, and then right? But yet when it comes to relationship, I wonder how often do we think about it like that? I don't. So if at this stage you're already at it, great, very good, right? But I want, and it doesn't mean we have to have like all the answers already, but we need to have a consideration of that, and so sorry, another point I want to point about is that, like, we spend a lot of time, right? We spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money studying and working hard, right, to build up your career. You spend a lot of time, right? Even when you're right now in your career, you still want to think about how you upgrade yourself, right? But but when it comes to relationship, how often do we spend the same amount of energy, effort, investment into it, right? Like, I mean, career wise, like these days we switch careers. I would say that, like, people who are younger than me, like I'm 40 right now, right? Anybody who's younger than me, highly likely you may gonna switch a career during your life. Well, I sort of did. I started from IT. Now I'm doing like kind of like more ministry, right? So wouldn't it make more sense if I spend the same amount of energy or focus onto establishing a base for a healthy relationship? because it's gonna go for the end of my life. I think that makes sense. Of course, I mean, relationships is a bit harder, right? It's hard to measure, it's hard to articulate. There could be it's very emotional, it's very painful and personal. I understand that it's very ambiguous sometimes, but at the same time, relationship is like I don't like to talk about my feelings, to be honest. I suppress them. I tell you, I suppress them most of the time. So, but yeah, if relationship is so important, I think it is worthwhile to focus on that a bit more. Okay, so that's why I have this webinar series. Okay, so I'm just gonna go quickly about like marriage. Why is marriage important? Okay, so marriage is created by God. Marriage is a blessing. Children are a blessing, contrary to what most of our culture and even sometimes ourselves tell us, right? So I'm not gonna go too much about it, but how do I know marriage is important, or how how do I know marriage is important in God's eyes, right? So let's look at this. Um, Genesis 2, right from the get-go, right? After there's a story of how God created Adam and God created Eve because Adam could not find a helper and whatnot, right? So in Genesis 2, it's already talking about marriage. Like this Genesis 2:24, right? It's been like, why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife. The leave and cleave idea, right? They become one flesh, right? Then I realized that, like, imagine this is the beginning of the book, right? You can write anything you want. You can write anything you want, but yet marriage is like right there in chapter 2. For me, it's like, oh, that one means that marriage is important in God's heartbeat, right? So so that's what I'm not focused a whole session on marriage, but I'm talking about relationship, right? The whole from before, during, and after. I mean, before and during, yeah, not after, hopefully. So I'm gonna read this long quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So if you don't know him, you can look him up. He's um a really follower of Jesus, died in World War II, going against the Nazi Germany. Okay, so this is what he said about marriage. Excuse me that if this quote is long, you know me, like if you know how I teach, I tend to teach like long quotes and kind of explain it. So I'm just gonna read this out loud and explain, kind of highlight some of the points I want to talk about. Okay, so marriage is more than your love for each other. It has a higher dignity and power, for it is God's holy ordinance, through which He wills to perpetuate the human race till the end of time. In your love, you see only your two selves in the world, but in marriage, you are linked in the chain of the generations, which God causes to come and pass away to His glory, and calls into His kingdom. Your love is your own private possession, but marriage is, more than something personal. It's a status, an office, just as it is the crown and not merely the will to rule that makes a king. So it is marriage and not merely your love for each other that joins you together in the sight of God and man. Wow, what a mouthful. Yeah, I sorry. It's not so sarcastic, but he writes deep. So for me, I'm like, what's holy ordinance? I could like Google it and say, oh, ordinance is like kind of like God's design and order. So we can see that marriage is God's design order, not just because, oh, I love that girl, therefore I'm getting married, but rather God actually created the idea of marriage, the order, the system of marriage for us, right? And yet, the point I want to highlight, oh, and also the second part is a status and office. Like what's an office? Like, like the king, the priest, the prophets, those an office, right? Those are what kind of like the role that God has given, and Dietrich is like saying that marriage alone is an office just as important as a king, priest, or prophet, right? For me, it's quite substantial. And the middle part I talk about, the chain of the generations, right? That is how marriage is linked, right? Have you ever thought about it like that? That like my parents, my grandparents, their grandparents, their grandparents, all the way to the top, right? It's chain of generations through marriage that being come together, right? And now I am in that chain, and my children is in the chain, right? That like it's not only because my own action, right? But it's actually almost like God's sovereign plan, right? That this chain of generations come together, right? And you and I are in this chain, right? In your own chain, right? So And yet, and so this is, wow, very powerful, very very sobering for me to see. Like it's not just, oh, I just love someone, therefore I want to get married, but rather, God is ways of design and plan this through the through how we can go from one generation to the next, and I have the part to play in that. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with one point. If there's any point, what's the point of today's webinar is that our previous generations affects the way we approach relationship. Now, so how do I explain that? Okay, not just the DNA, but I think also a lot of personality, a lot of the way we think, we focus, the way the decision we make, right? Effects based on what our parents are doing, or their parents and their parents before. So, okay, this sounds like great, but is it biblical? Abraham and Isaac, okay? Genesis 12. When they went to Egypt because of the famine, Abraham at that time tells Sarah that, oh, you're so beautiful. If they see you as my wife, they're gonna kill me. So you know what? Just tell them you are my sister. Then I'll be spared for my life, right? So basically, Abraham tells Sarah to lie, right? And guess what? Isaac, his son, did it again. Genesis 26, right? We went to this place called Gerar, and then the man asked him about his wife, right? To Rebecca, right? Say, hey, tell them that you're my sister. Don't tell them that you're my wife. He's afraid, right? Interesting, right? Like they both lied, right? One generation after another. It makes me think, did Abraham told Isaac about this story? Obviously not, because if Abraham told Isaac, this plan, like, oh, if you ever go to this one place, just lie, it didn't work, right? It didn't work in Abraham's time. God ended up saving them, saving Abraham and Sarah, right? So why would Isaac do the same thing? But there's a pattern of lying is being passed down from one generation to the next, right? And so there's one truth we see in the Bible, one truth we see in relationship. We inherit good things and bad things from our parents and the parents beforehand, right? And this has a huge factor, whether we like it or not, and how we approach relationship. Okay, so you don't have to answer this right now, but something to think about. What generation patterns you derive from your parents and or grandparents, right? So, okay, if you're not sure, this is a couple of ways to consider, okay? I mean, there's so many ways to think about, but just a couple of ways to consider. These questions will kind of give you a glimpse of how you approach relationship and what you value and what does not value, okay? And so, first one, who made the decision in your family? And what type of conflict resolution is common in your family? I think that one will be huge key, at least for me. And what values do we taught at home, whether verbal or non-verbal? So for my example, when I married Rachel, I told Rachel that, you know what? When I think about my parents, I don't remember in my memory they have fought at all. They never fought, right? So you think, wow, that's a great marriage, right? Like, I assumed that was a great marriage. But then what I didn't realize is that as I, it took some time, then I realized that the reason why they didn't fight is because, well, both my parents are people pleasing. That's one. But I love them. They're both people pleasing. But two is that my dad tends to suppress his emotions. So he doesn't really have he just whatever say they will do, right? And then all of a sudden my dad will explode in anger. Okay. And guess what? I had the same pattern as well. So when we got married, Rachel, I would have this monthly talk about our marriage, right? Like any issues during the week, we'll have talk about it so that it doesn't build up, you can fix stuff and whatnot. It's a great way, especially if you're going on a date, you want to get on a fight, you know what, let's park it until that day when we talk, marriage talk, then we enjoy time together, right? Great. Now there's a problem is that I never want to talk about any conflict. So whenever there's a marriage talk, I'll always say, do you have any problem? Like Rachel will say, do you have any issues this week? I say, no issues, right? But then I get upset. Then when I get upset, then I'm like, oh, this time you did, that time you did, all the stuff that's like, and then Rachel was like, why don't you bring this up during the marriage talk? And I'm like, oh, wait, where did I learn this? Oh, wait, I learned it from seeing how my parents are, right? And so, it's really hard. It's really hard for me to I gotta write it down and stuff, to think really hard to is there any issues? Because I want to bring it up before they become too big of an issue. right? So 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 why is this important? The question, Chris, this views the way we approach family based on our previous, from our parents and whatnot. Is that a skewed one, and that's not biblical, right? That's the real question. Are these patterns biblical and healthy? Some are not, and most likely I would say they're not. Especially if we grew up with parents who are not Christians. Even if we grew up with parents who are Christians, because they may not fully change, transform in Christ, right? So there's still sinful natures in us. It doesn't mean that, oh, I dealt such a bad hand for my parents. It's not unfair compared to my friends and whatnot. But the reality is that if you think about it, we're all like this. That's why, you know, you know, we're all sinners at heart, right? This is being passed from one generation to the next. There's no one is immune to it per se. But then there's hope, right? The question is, can we change? Of course we can. Of course we can change, right? In Christ we can change. How do I know that? Colossians 3:5-10, right? Paul told the church in Colossae to say, put to death all these bad things, like these earthly things, right? Sinful nature, right? And then put on the new self, right? Right? So I'm not saying this is easy. Some may be easy, something may take a long time, right? But I believe that when we allow the Holy Spirit to work in us, these things can be renewed and be transformed. Things that are the patterns that are not healthy can be transformed into healthiness, right? So okay, I'm gonna wrap it up quite quickly. So part of this being relationship, family, and marriage. Talk about leaving a legacy, right? I may not think about it, or at least not yet. But church, I think you hear this once in a while. Talk about leaving a legacy. What do you mean to leave a legacy, right? For us Chinese, especially, we think about stuff, right? Money, house, car, education, right? That's the legacy that we leave to our kids, right? Just physical stuff. But I believe there's actually a greater and more valuable legacy is putting on the new self. It's having a life from Jesus. On one hand, it may sound like, oh man, Cliff, you're telling me I'm gonna do all these issues that like generation past me, I gotta do all this work. Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you look at it from another angle, you and I have the privilege to change the course of generation based on our willingness to put off the old self and put on the new self. We can change. Like this point, the chains of generations, we can be that link that change for that when we change, it will pass on the life of Jesus, the life of healthiness, pass on to the next generation. For me, it's like, on one hand, it feels like a burden. On one hand, it's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I don't want my kids to have this. I don't want them to deal with it like the way I have to deal with it, or my parents deal with it, because they don't know Christ at that time. But now I know, and it's possible, right? So that's what I want to talk about. Relationship, healthy relationship, right? Because that takes work, right? I mean, for example, if you want to live an unhealthy life, okay, eat chicken rice every day. Go to McDonald's, eat every day, right? It's not hard, right? Like, I don't have to force you. Like, hey, you got to eat your French fries right now. Go and get your chicken McNugget right now, right? I don't have to force you. It's so easy. But to live a healthy life, oh, that's hard, man. That's hard work. It's like I gotta, push that chicken nugget away because I gotta, live a healthy life, right? People want to go and grab some junk food. I gotta eat healthy food. I'm not against eating healthy. Okay, I like to eat healthy, but you know what I mean, right? It takes a lot more work to do healthy stuff than do the unhealthy pattern, right? And this is so practical because if you think about it, I'm talking about discipleship, right? Isn't it the same thing? It's the same thing. It's nothing different, right? But it's not some discipleship where you go on course, you read something, you learn some Bible verses, and you listen to theology, right? But this is like real life to life things, right? So I'm dedicating this webinars to my girls, right? Sarah, Faith, and Esther Praise, right? My desire is that they grow up to walk in the ways of God and in healthy relationships, right? They're so cute. So okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up today. I'm not gonna go through too much, but that is something that I want you to think about and pray in and ask the Holy Spirit, like, where are ways that are, or maybe the way I feel relationships, there's something that is not right. I'm not saying all of us are like, I'm not trying to judge you guys, okay? That's not my point. But my point is just let the Holy Spirit examine you, examine your heart, right? And I believe that he were able to guide you in areas that were like, that may not be areas that bring glory to him. It's not a shameful thing. It's actually a good thing because, I live with suppressing my emotions for like 40 years of my life. Now I realize, hey, I gotta stop doing this. I gotta stop, when there's issues, I need to bring them out, not just to hide them away, suppress, suppress, suppress. Okay? So, okay, topic series. So the rest of the topics, the next session we talk about healthy relationship. You're going to define what it is, how does that look like, what is, what's not. Okay. Next session is after that is physical intimacy. I say how close is too close because there's all this different way of interpreting. Everybody have their own standard. Okay. Next one, then I'm going to talk about dating and relationship, right? Dating and courtship. Then talk about marriage. Then about parenthood. Okay. So as I say, there's a last session at Q&A with Ray and Cliff. So if you have anything, please go on and talk. Or not just send, if not just type a message and we just go on and share. Okay. So that's about it for today. So thank you. Oh, good. End up in pretty good time. So we'll be the same time next week, either Thursday 8:45 or Sunday at 2. Right? Feedback. Wait, let me type it up here. bit.ly/relationshipfeedback.com. Your feedback is very important to me because I want to know how I can be better, right? So if you need to contact me, cliff.tem@gmail.com. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for coming on. Anything? If you have any Q&A, please. All right. Let me pause my.